This time we'll call to order the regular meeting of Plan Commission. This is November 25th, 2024. Kelly, roll please.
Mayor Boyd,
I'm here.
Citizenmember Bush,
Here.
Alderperson Gantz,
Here.
Alderperson Hanson,
Here.
Citizenmember Higgins,
Here.
Citizenmember Raymaker,
Here.
Citizenmember Schilling.
Here.
All right, all here. Very good. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the October 28, 2024 Plan Commission meeting.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Grant, seconded by Mark. Discussion or comments? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries. Oh, sorry about that, Pamela. Motion carries. Thank you. I'll remember to pause now. I'll remember. Item 3, public
Sorry.
comment, which I didn't do that time. Public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Plan Commission. Anyone in person or virtually have any public comment upon matters not on the agenda, now is your time. I assume you're all here for agenda items. Very good. Anyone virtually have any public comment upon matters not on the agenda? For the third and final time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda, now is your time. All right, item 4, consideration and possible action for an extraterritorial 4-lot certified survey map at 1201 Wrightstown Road in Rockland, Parcel R-279. Dan?
All right. So, hold on one second. I thought I had this up, so apologize for that. All right. So the item in front of you tonight, the first item is the, as you mentioned, the extraterritorial 4-lot CSM. Right at the very southern edge of our extraterritorial zone, review area. As you can tell on the map in front of you, the area in purple is our extraterritorial area, and the item that is not is, I guess you would say, the very edge of it. And so at this point, we're in the very edge of that. Draft CSM is in your packet. Staff just requests that a condition be, or that the conditions in your packet are stated that it's just approval would be subject to all town and county requirements.
Thank you. Questions, comments, motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Jonathan, seconded by Mark. Discussion or comments?
Subject to the conditions.
And same with you as
Yes.
Mark. All right, thank you. That said, if I see there is no more, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action for a zoning map amendment from MX2 Neighborhood Mixed Use to GXI Office Residential Mix at 314 North Broadway and 330 North Broadway, parcels ED-870, ED-871. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. The item in front of you tonight is a zoning map amendment request from the property owner at the addresses that you listed to go from MX2 to GX1, not GXI, so just a GX1. This is one of those areas in the downtown in which under the new zoning code, so prior to 2023, so January 1 of 2023, we adopted the new zoning code, which added several different zoning districts to our downtown instead of primarily just one. And in this case, it was the MX2. We tried to place the zoning districts as close as possible as the uses, but also trying not to deviate from what the previous zonings were so that property owners wouldn't be too impacted by it. When you do a complete zoning overhaul, our first one in 50 years on over 8,000 to 9,000 parcels, you're going to potentially have some of these requests. And so the request is to rezone to an MX, or from the MX2 to the GX1. Property was placed in the GS1 to sort of get that best fit, kind of that lower density kind of transitioning to the neighborhood. At that time, we discussed and debated about is GX1 or MX1 the appropriate category because there is a GX1 adjacent to it already, just on Wisconsin Street. So at this point, the council or the Plan Commission and Council established that upper fringe of Broadway as an MX2 district. However, in which that then created the nonconformity of the office structure because offices are only allowed on second floors of MX2 and MX1 zoning districts. We had a nonconformity in the building. So at this time, the petitioner is requesting to change that to the GX1, potentially to add a small pet cremation as part of it, which would be allowed in the GX1 category. Again, prior to 2023, that same service would have been permitted in that use in the B1 zoning district category. So again, it's the uses itself sort of try to find their way to try to find the best zoning district, and oftentimes, or not said oftentimes, but sometimes that can happen where we didn't find what we were planning for the future or what the property owner was planning for the future, and so thus they're making a zoning map amendment request. But as I mentioned, under the previous code, this would have been a permitted use, and they would have just gone through site plan approval during that process. So on the packet in front of you, I have the zoning code tables if we want to discuss what the differences are between the MX2 zoning district and the GX1 zoning district. And then here's the map as well. So again, this is the MX2 zoning district. This is the GX1 zoning district. And so, and again, is similar and close. We have another GX1 zoning district as well. So some of the surrounding uses in that area, there are the R2 zoning districts to the north. That's the residentials. This is, again, very similar to what the previous code allowed for. We have some MX2 across the street and some office. We have some MX1, again, where the potential Shopco redevelopment is going to happen, as well as some of the planned unit developments over top of a GX1 zoning district as well. And so then you also do see some public and institutional uses. We do have some multifamily uses to the north, kind of in this area. So if you kind of look at the quadrants to the north, to the west, to the east, and to the south. So, and then on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen is the future land use map, and this area is identified as commercial. So it does comply with the zoning request. So at that point, the petitioner is requesting to make that change, and at that point, you can open it up for comments.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments that people have? Shane?
Seems to me, I mean, like this would have been approved in our old zoning that we had anyway. And we might bump into a few more of these coming up down the road too.
Yeah, not this type of use, but in general where we've had a use that we thought fit the appropriate zoning district, but again, it's on that fringe area and it may need a kind of deviation one way or the other. It is also said that if you're also looking at the cremation use by as a standalone use here, we also do have one in our near downtown on George Street as well that is also happening. So we have a kind of a similar use near the downtown, just a little bit further down George. But in general, like you mentioned, if this would have been in 2022, it would have been a permitted use by right in that B1 commercial zoning district.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Jonathan?
For the crematorium use specifically, any concerns about impact to the nearby residents, like with odor or anything?
The state has some pretty strict guidelines when it comes to that one, when it comes to particulate filters and a variety of other thresholds that they have to meet that are far exceed anything our zoning code is going to require. So I can have the applicant, you can probably make that information request back to the applicant because they are certified by the state. But they do exceed, the state standards exceed what our impacts would be.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this item on the agenda?
Yeah.
If so, all right, I'll make a motion to open the meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Shane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. You can go to the table right over there, and then you can give us your name and your address.
My name is James Williams. My address is 434 North Broadway. So I'm one of the property owners just directly north of just that one. There you go. So we're single-family residents, a couple parcels north of this project. And, we just wanted to express our concerns about this. Obviously, it's mainly about the crematorium. Not necessarily, we know living close to downtown De Pere, we're going to have commercial there. That's not really the issue. It's more about having the crematorium directly against, residential. And I do know, there's the Cotter crematorium, and that was also kind of controversial in the neighborhood as well, having that right in the residential neighborhood. But, there's concerns about odor, there's concerns about particulate, and I know there's stringent standards, but those standards do allow a certain amount of emissions to come out of, these sort of facilities. And, we have a 10-year-old, we have an 11-year-old, a lot of neighbors on it, even our block have young children, and so we're just concerned about it. that were changing zoning. It was obviously zoned this way because they wanted a bit of buffer between the heavy density of downtown. The Shopko is going to be a very high density redevelopment if that goes through. And so, it's clear that there was a desire to have a little bit less density between the downtown area and what is traditionally single-family houses and a traditional residential neighborhood. And so changing it, obviously allows for heavier density and heavier uses and kind of removes a little bit of that buffer for us residents who live in the neighborhood and, this is our home. So we just wanted to express those concerns to you that, it is kind of concerning to change the zoning in general to a higher density, heavier use zoning, but also to have it as a crematorium, even though it might be a high standard there or, equipment that does a high standard of a job. That doesn't mean it's not going to have any emissions. It's not a non-emission thing. So, we just wanted to express that concern as neighbors. And I know we're not the only ones, not everyone could be here tonight, but I'm sure you've seen on Facebook, on De Pere Community Connect and other places that people are asking questions and they are concerned. So just wanted to express that.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak? I'm gonna go one more over here first, and I'll bring you guys up next. You can come on up, and then I'll go to you guys next, okay? I'm assuming they must be the owners of the building. The applicant? Okay, so we'll let them go first. Just need your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Perens. I live at 400 North Broadway, and I'm directly across Cass Street from the facility in question. I've done a decent amount of research in respect to emissions, in respect to regulations, odor, particulate, all of that, and I understand that they try to mitigate as best possible, but there are still emissions. There is still particulate. For instance, if you look at how many companies are regulated and fulfill the EPA's regulations, they're still polluting. There's still particulate. And the fact is, we live there. We don't go home at 5 o'clock. That's our home. And being so adjacent to that type of facility does raise concerns. It also raises concerns for me in respect to the value of the historic neighborhood. And how does this align with that being a historic neighborhood? And what does that do to our property values, to the regulations that we have to maintain a historic neighborhood? There are a lot of questions that are being raised in a lot of neighbors' minds. I also want to be a good neighbor, and I want to support all of the neighbors that are trying to come and to be understanding and respectful that that's our home, and there are major concerns, and from what I can see, for good reason. And I just would like all those kinds of questions to be addressed, and I just know that there are emissions, and living there is definitely a concern with young children, with our homes, and not only our breathing air, but also our property values. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this side over here? Otherwise, I'll go to the applicant. One more.
Hello, I'm Holly Williams. Live at 434 and 432 North Broadway. We own both parcels. I would like to speak to two different things. One is the strategic vision for the community. I know much time and effort and money was spent into creating those strategic plans, and all of those scenarios called for this area to be the gateway to the community into De Pere. So I just wanted to put that out there as, is that the gateway that we would like to have into the city in the strategic vision? And number two, I would like to know if there's any different regulations for health as far as particulates and emissions with a human crematorium versus a pet crematorium.
Thank you very much. All right, I think the applicant might want to speak. You guys want to come up then? We'll need your name and addresses. Obviously, you heard some things from the folks in the audience and the neighbors. So we'd hope you'd address some of those questions in addition to whatever other information you want to share as well. So,
Thank you. I'm Attorney Travis Shears, Schereurs, and I'm here on behalf of Lauren Underhill, who is the owner of Witsy 2 Holdings, which is the property owner at 330 and 314 North Broadway. Lauren purchased that building in 2019, and for several years it was used as the primary office building for her business, Core Life. Lauren has since sold Core Life and embarked on a new venture that allows her to focus on really on one of her life's passions, and that is providing the appropriate and humane treatment of pets and animals. She's recently organized Camelot Cremation LLC, which is a company focused on providing cremation services to pet owners. Lauren is a certified pet funeral director. Camelot Cremation has 2 locations, the other being in Swamico, which is focused on cremation for equines and other large animals. The goal and the ultimate reason for the underlying rezoning application is to install a very small cremation unit on the premises at 330 North Broadway. This unit would only be used for small pets, dogs and cats, with the hope being that Camelot Cremation can provide small private ceremonies for pet owners who desire a ceremony really that they can participate in. Those ceremonies would take place during business hours between 8 and 5, and the cremation process takes about 2 hours long. As we've discussed, or has been discussed already, the premises are currently zoned MX2, and while that does allow animal grooming and veterinary services, it does not allow funeral or mortuary services as a permitted use. GX1 zoning would allow that. When I reviewed the differences between the zoning districts, really the MX2 and GX1 districts do appear to be very similar in nature, both mixed-use zones. And that's in both the types of uses that are permitted in those zoning districts, but also in the character of the buildings that are constructed there. There will be some minor modification to the existing building to put the incineration unit in, but that will primarily involve walling off or closing off an existing covered outdoor patio. We've got a sketch here. I don't know if you all are going to want to take a look at what that will end up looking like, but that's kind of down the road a little bit once we figure out the zoning. I also have some materials here based upon that discuss the cremation unit and just some specifications. If you want to review that, I certainly can hand those out as well. This unit is actually been purchased from Adfield, a company out of the United Kingdom. It contains a primary burning chamber and then also has a secondary afterburner chamber, which effectively eliminates particulate emissions and odor. We understand that the people here, neighbors, residents, are concerned about smoke or odor. We are also concerned about smoke and odor, and we want to make sure that we're limiting that as much as possible. We actually have a much larger unit installed out in Swamico, and that's been operating, and the results out there have been excellent. There's been little to no odor or emissions, and so I think that the concerns that any neighbors or residents have now will not be a concern once the unit is installed and running. So just to summarize, we believe that the structure is modified and the use are appropriate for the GX1 zoning designation. We're very excited about beginning to offer this service to De Pere residents. Lauren's here, I'm here. We have Mike Cashman from Delirious who will be doing that minor construction work. We also, just so you're aware, have sent letters to all nearby property owners, but we haven't received any negative feedback. There was some discussion earlier about some comments that were on, was it De Pere Community Connection on Facebook? I've got a printout here. There are 35 comments. I don't think there are any negative comments on here, and most of it is a discussion from residents asking if people, neighbors to the Cotter facility have had any problems. And I don't think, again, there's any comments in here that say that there's an issue, that there's, all these comments say there's no smell, no problems. We haven't even really noticed that we live next to it. If you didn't tell us that we live next to it, we wouldn't know. And that's the standard that we want to abide by as well, and we're confident that we will be able to live up to that expectation. Again, this is a small pet unit, not the size of one that would be able to cremate a human. If you have any questions, please.
Yeah, we'll probably do that since you're there and while it's open, and we'll just throw some stuff out. First of all, I don't put a lot of stock in Facebook Community Connect, things like that. It doesn't do much for me at all. I don't read that or look at it, and I need people to talk to me and or be here in person. So I just don't really put any stock in that because it's really hard to tell what's accurate and not accurate. So I'm going to throw that out. You have a place in Swamico, I understand? And then how busy is that place?
Where in Swamico? We primarily do horses there, so it's I would say on average we're cremating 2 horses a week.
Okay.
Where in Swamico? On Deerfield Road, right off the highway.
Is that near commercial or is that primarily residential or pretty open out there?
Yeah, it's industrial commercial.
Kind of industrial, not in residential areas, I think what Brenda's getting at, right?
Right. The only other horse incinerator in the state is in Madison, and it's in a very residential area right next to a McDonald's, and they have no issues there, the smell or sound. So even when we're doing horses out there, it's, we've been doing it for a while, and there's no smoke, there's no smell, there's no noise to it. You would not even know that it's running. It's also cool to the touch, so you can walk up and touch it at any time. Everything is done very discreetly, so there aren't any animals outside at any point. Animals aren't being stockpiled. And the primary purpose for this unit, for us wanting to do it here, is because we've had quite a bit of interest in families being able to participate, which is something that they do at the other pet crematories in town. So there are 3 others that are currently operating and do cremations very close to residential areas. Forever Friends is one of them in particular, with homes very close. And
I'm sorry, where was that again?
Forever Friends is one of the pet crematories that does pets already. It's very close in a residential area with homes really close next to it. Faithful Companions is another. So we have 3 in our area that are already doing it. They're all, in fairly residential areas, and there just isn't a smell or sight to it.
Okay, I'll clarify one thing. Dan, we're looking at a zoning map amendment. Do they come back another time after this to go through what they want to do with the building, or is this the finished product?
As you approved the new zoning code in 2023, the zoning code added design standards for the downtown, and that future building would have to follow design standards. So in this case, there's certain setbacks that the GX1 district actually have larger setbacks, so it's actually the MX1 has closer setbacks, so it actually a little bit less from a total density standpoint, but as the applicant has stated that they're looking at just enclosing that former drive-through facility,
Yep.
which would then just have to follow the downtown standards of hard materials and like materials that they have in the current building.
But as far as the use of the building with the pet crematorium, as long as they're fulfilling the standard, this is the end for it.
Yeah, the only other standards that come in play are the state standards for their licensing requirements.
Okay, I just want everyone to be clear, because sometimes we do this and we come back the next time for the site plan, but this would be
Like
the
a
finish.
special use permit or something. But
Does this go to council
The
then?
zoning map amendment will go to council. So the same discussion that you're having here tonight will be a public hearing. If you recommend approval to move forward, it would be a public
With the
hearing
public
scheduled.
hearing at the common council
Yes.
meeting? So
It'll be
everyone's
the
aware. I
formal
just want everything out there right now so everyone aware what happens next. I'm done with my questions now. Who else would like to ask a question? Anybody?
Well,
Mark?
one of the questions was the regulations for particulate.
That's the one I had left remaining on my list too.
And is anyone qualified here to be able to address that?
We have documentation, so in the UK, standards are actually much higher than they are here. It's particularly why I purchased these units. They're almost twice as expensive as any units that are manufactured in the United States. I wanted no issue ever. I wanted to be able to put it where we needed to put it. And so these units, we have, specific data on their their emissions and what they, what they produce. It's all very specific. It's in metric. So it's, but we certainly have pages and pages of data on the machines themselves.
I
Are
assume-
there actually environmental regulations out there that we need to follow here, I guess is the...
Well, the EPA and the DNR don't regulate these because they don't produce emissions that meet their threshold, is what we were told. And then, as far as we actually spoke with someone at the Department of Public Health.
Yep, and I've spoken with someone at the county level as well, and they don't have any restriction on any particulate emissions.
With this equipment or?
Correct.
Or with anything, I guess.
With this equipment.
Okay.
And again, we went through the Cotter Funeral Home crematorium as well, so we went through that process, and they're all certified, and they're following the requirements. But Dan, can you shed more light on what the requirements are, or you just don't know right now at this time?
Yeah, so as they mentioned, the standards for pet cremation versus human cremation standards when it comes to particulate, I can't really think in my head of what in our code would equal that one, but from a standard, it's the particulate matters are going to be far below what you would have at a manufacturing facility. So therefore, the threshold for when the EPA gets involved and the DNR gets involved hasn't been met during these standards, and so therefore there's not like an air pollution permit that has to be pulled on those standards. They again just have to comply with their licensing requirements through the state, which is again being certified in that level. So again, the level of threshold is what's not being met to require an air permit from the DNR.
Thank you. Other questions anyone has? Okay, were all the questions that they had asked, were they all addressed? You took some down. Did you take some down as well? Dan, did you?
Sorry, that last one was sort of answered, but if there needs to be additional research prior to a public hearing, I can do that as well for the council.
Okay, thank you.
If you'd like to.
Appreciate that, yep. Anything else you'd like to add? Knowing that we'll get more information if we move this forward for the public hearing. And if you have stuff, bring it forward as well, too.
Yeah, we have nothing else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, everyone seemed to have a chance to speak, so I'd make a motion to go back to regular session.
I'll second that.
Motion by me, seconded by Grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Pam, did you have any questions out there?
No, I don't. Thank you.
That anyone else have a question and/or comment? Again, knowing if we do approve this, it's going to go on to the Common Council for a public hearing and another look at this as well. It'll also give us more time for Dan to do some research on what they had been
If you
talking
have
about.
additional questions, specific additional questions for me,
We have the one, right, where you're going to look into.
you want the very specifics about, well, there's two things that came out of that one, which are standards for pet versus human, and then the standards for what particulate standards, if there are any, for pet cremations, I guess you would say. I think I answered the second one, but if you want to know the particulate differences between the two.
Right. Can you find out one more thing as well, too? And Cotter has been around for a while with the crematorium. I've received no complaints or no concerns at all. When we went through the process, really none whatsoever. And then as it's been, transcribed, could you see if you have anything and bring that back to us?
Complaints on Cotter?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Complaints or concerns? Anyone else have questions if we do approve this going forward that you have of Dan? Mark?
The letters that were sent out to the neighbors as of this writing, there were no negative comments, but have there been some since?
The only comments I've seen are what, again, was online. I haven't received any to me. I wasn't sure if, Peter was out of the office on Friday, and today, obviously, so I haven't heard if he's got any in his voicemail. But other than that, he didn't tell me of any before he left. It went out to It went out to our standard 300-foot radius.
How far is 300 feet? Would I have gotten that?
At minimum, I don't have a problem with the request for the zoning map amendment, knowing that it goes to Common Council for a public hearing and a second look at this with additional research. And then you've heard everything that we're looking at. We've heard the neighbors as well. So I would make a motion to approve the request for the zoning map amendment from MX2 to GX1.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by me, seconded by Shane. Additional comments or discussion? Mark?
Is that motion,
He has the
subject to-
questions. Yeah.
subject to the questions and additional research related to the particulate?
Yeah, 2 questions and maybe a third if I fleshed it out a little bit more.
And there'll be another reach out to the neighbors as well, too, because it's a public hearing,
Yeah,
correct?
and the public hearing will not be at the next meet. It's got to be scheduled, noticed in the paper, so it'll be the second meeting in December unless the council cancels that meeting.
Okay. Grant?
Mayor, this reminds me of when the dental clinic came to us for the expansion. And we actually approved that, and then it was voted down at Common Council. I would tell you that what I heard from the folks in the audience was that you were concerned. But I didn't hear you say you were opposed to it. And I think those are different things. And if you are opposed to it, then I would think that your message should probably change between now and that council meeting. I'm not telling you to oppose it or not oppose it, and you're absolutely entitled to be concerned. I can tell you I live off of Rockland, and I would trade a crematorium for the manure spreaders all day. My wife actually thought that was me. We had the windows open when we first moved to town and asked if that was me. So it wasn't.
All right, Grant.
Little subject humor.
How do you put that in?
But I would say that that's something I would recommend to both groups is that, I think our role here is to make sure, as Dan is checking, is that we approve things that are to code. But your opinion on whether or not, as a resident, whether you're opposed to it or concerned, and your neighbors, I think maybe there's an opportunity to voice that at council. Because I agree that we should approve it based on it meeting code, but whether or not you're in favor of it, you have that right to express that come the council meeting.
And this also gives us more time as well, too, to do some research and answer some of the questions. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, the focus of those questions is the safety and of the neighbors in that area and beyond, perhaps. So that'll be important, Dan. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Other questions or comments,
I'll
Jonathan?
let Brenda go.
I'm
Brenda.
just curious when the letters go out and it's the 300 feet with mixed-use buildings, because I'm a resident at the Lawton Foundry Apartments, and I've not heard about this or received a letter, so I'm assuming it must just go to our property manager,
Yes.
and then they choose if they let us know this or not?
Yeah, that is correct. Our ordinance, because at some point there would be a limit to how much we can, I guess you'd say, continue to send out letters, because we don't have all the addresses for every tenant that's in that building. We would just do an address to every, I guess you'd say, every tenant in that building, with just having to know what specific unit addresses are. We use the county's property database because that is who is reflective in that database. If there's a request to change that, that has to come at a later date from the Plan Commission and Council. But we have followed the code requirements in the zoning code.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier about additional research needed. I'm okay with moving this forward tonight, but I'm on the council and it's going to come back to the council. There's nothing in the agenda packet about the merits of having a crematorium this close to a residential neighborhood, if there's any health concerns. So that's all something that I think we need to dig into a lot more before it gets to the council. But yeah, just tonight, again, I'm okay moving it forward, but not necessarily going to be locked in when it gets to the council. I need to do more research. So.
Very good. Thank you. Other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion.
Hey,
Yes, you can, Pamela.
can I say something?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I would be interested in more research as well before we vote on it at council. And also, I would like to know what the neighbors think as well and what their input is with regard to those letters. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I recall, and I don't remember all the details, but with the other crematorium, I mean, there was the research done and additional work that satisfied.
Yeah, I have the packet, the initial, I think it was from 2010 5 or 6 when that when Cotter was being discussed. I went through those minutes, and I went through those packets. So did Peter, just to kind of get a feel for kind of the discussion that was had at that time. And I believe Cotter probably does a little bit more. How do I not make this sound morbid, but volume of material, I guess you would say, through their facility than this would. But that being said, I can pull some of that information as well.
Thank you. Is that good?
Very good.
Just to see if there's any research, and then I'll compare it to updated 20 years later.
Appreciate that.
Right.
Great.
Good.
Other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? All right, seeing there are no more, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Again, this will be scheduled for a future Common Council meeting. You'll be informed. It won't be the first one in December, we've been told, possibly the second in December, but you'll be told. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for coming in, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, moving ahead here. Item 6, discussion about site plans received since the October 2024 Plan Commission meeting and review of the status of recently approved development projects. Dan? Or anybody.
Yeah.
Why do I throw it to him? You can see as well as he can say it.
Yep, the packet's in front of you. All the information was updated as of last week, so let me know if you have any questions on any of those specific site plans.
Anybody? Jonathan?
Just wondering if you could give us an update on the Waterview Heights subdivision. I know there's been discussions about whether we have to get going with the park and everything. I'm just wondering how much of that's been developed so far.
We're on phase 2 of the infrastructure this year, so if you've been out there recently, you can see that the infrastructure's been put in, curbs, roads, all those things have been put in or in the process of being put in before the asphalt plant shut down. And then once that opens up, you'll start to see some of those homes pop in. But Waterview Heights is picking up very quickly. It's going to be up to the Parks Department to make that improvement when they want to make that improvement. It's not on the developer because the developer did provide the land to the city. The city owns it. It is on the city.
That site plan was approved in 2023, May, and that,
The entire Waterview Heights, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's-
So Waterview Heights, what site plan came in through here for Waterview Heights was the multifamily.
Apartments,
Yeah. So the apartments, the 4 16-unit buildings. They originally came in 2023 and got site plan approval, and they actually got one building permit approval, I believe, right, Kelly? I think they did. Ultimately, they didn't act on it. And immediately in 23, they still were within their time frame to act on it from site plan approval wise, and then they did act on it, and they are building those units now. So until those units are completed, we'll keep that on there.
Got it.
So
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, I gotta go back to the agenda here. It's going someplace else. That said, up next, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Brenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela, for making this meeting. Thank you, everyone else. We are officially done.
Thank you.